I had no idea what I was going into. I was a very, quote, serious, unquote, actress, really studying theater, very involved since I was a child. And I went out because we were getting married and because Mark was going to be directing at Playwrights, and I thought improvisational theater, not knowing what it is, sounded interesting, fine. I was thrust up on stage. We got there at like 12 midnight. We'd been driving for 2 days straight. I couldn't see. Somebody stuck a glass of water in my hand and said, gargle. And I went out on stage, and here were all these musicians, each doing their own shtick with something else, and at some point I swallowed the water, musicians? Gargled.
What, you mean they were improvising musical instruments?
Yes, yes. And I obviously was the singer of the group, and gargled my way through. Came off stage, that was Compass.
I had the, I would say, privilege or the opportunity once of doing a film in the wildest part of Irian Jaya, New Guinea. And that's the old Netherlands, New Guinea, which was, I mean, very, very primitive. And living for almost a month with these people who were headhunters. And they were really very nice people, despite the fact that they ritually took heads. And there was a chance to observe their rituals. And they improvise.
I think improvisation in the culture has always been important. And it started, of course, in the 5th century BC with the Greek harvest rituals. Even while Aeschylus and Sophocles were writing their plays, there were people improvising in the streets.
I don't know of any theater group around the country that, as a matter of fact, I think improvisation was new then, or at least that formal.
The actual theater, the written theater, has hardly ever existed. 83 years in Greece, 150 years in the Renaissance, bit in the Middle Ages, late 19th century. In the last 2,500 years, we've had 200 or 300 years when people have been writing plays that have endured and where you had a living theater. But meanwhile, you had the improvisers who started in Greece, Commedia dell'arte in Italy, circus, burlesque. All of that was another substream of comedy. So you had the written comedy, which waxed and waned, and you had the improvised comedy, which went unbroken for 2,500 years.
Compass was pointing in all directions. You could do anything on the world, as long as it was about, you know, a certain kind of reality, objects, and whatever. And we succeeded on that.
When I walked into the Compass, it had a mystery about it. It had something special before the show ever started.
It was a kind of a, I mean, there was a stage and everything, but it was it lent itself to it being a kind of an informal milieu, and it just seemed made to order for what they were doing.
Compass Theater, the dive, the cabaret, the nightclub, was connected to Freddie Ranovic's bar. And that building was made that way because Sills had me put a hole in the wall connecting it, and I built a baffle. And so what I did was I tried to, you know, muffle that sound that would come out of there. And of course it was a regular bar. On Saturday nights, it you know, it was loud and there were arguments.
It was fresh. They were talented. They would recognize the comic situation. Elaine was extremely good at recognizing the potential in a comic situation, and she and Mike worked off each other very well.
So Paul and I built the stage, and then we put two sort of pipes back up the stage, and we had a back step going down. One of our problems was it was a very tight space, and there was a sink back there. But later it was the accident for Mike Nichols. The one about the oven. You remember the fairy story about the oven. He's popped into the oven. Well, they popped him in and he broke his shoulder.
It was small stage, and I don't know how big the audience was. It wasn't very big. At least I remember that it wasn't.
And we made these louvers. They were hollow core like doors, huge hollow core doors that were enclosed, of course, and had holes where the poles went through. And they could swing, and then we painted them, as Mike Nichols said, a riot of color. I called it comedy color. We had red, white, blue, and yellow.
The result is they could take something and that was humorous and just keep it going.
And we could make all kinds of combinations. They could be open doors for assemblies or rooms or parking garage or something. They could be closed, one open, you know, all the variety. Because we had no set at all. Furniture was those chairs, those ice cream chairs, or those wicker chairs. I mean the Bentwood chairs that the theater had as well. So we had those up there, so it kind of blended in. Occasionally we'd haul a table out on stage, but that was it, the minimum. All pantomime, and then the lights were hung in the front, and we had 2 baby spots and I think 4 Licos. I think that was it. And we gelled those, so it gave it a rosy kind of connection, and then the audience could look in from the street. And they got a kind of interesting picture with actors up there against this background. I thought it was a good come-up. We always left the curtains in such a way that they could look in, and there was no cover, no minimum. They got in for 50, you know, you could drink a beer for 50 cents.
And the music was wonderful. I mean, really caught the feeling of the place. And you became part of it. And when the show started, you were part of it.